Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us today for our content sharing webinar. We will introduce ourselves, go over an agenda, and then we will dig in. Hi, everyone. My name's Melinda. I'm a co-director of client success here at Reach, and I will pass it to my colleague Leslie to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I am Leslie Burliant. I am Melinda's partner in crime, the other co-director of client success at Reach. And I'm going to pass it to our wonderful co-host, Jamie Carter.
I'm the Political and Partnerships Director for DemCast USA. We are a 501(c)(4) that focuses on digital messaging for the left.
Thank you both. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is introductions. We've just done ours, but we'd like to hear a little bit from you. So please put your name, your pronouns if you'd like, your organization, and your location into the chat window. And an optional icebreaker is who is your favorite account to follow on social media? I know this is a really hard one. So appreciate and look forward to learning what you all enjoy watching. Basically, after that, we will talk about why content sharing, what the stakes are, and why it's so important, why content sharing with Reach, so how Reach can really amplify your content sharing work, how content sharing works, how to build a content program, and content best practices. And then we'll talk about recruiting volunteers, training volunteers, and retention, as well as a Q&A. So we'll have a portion for Q&A at the end, but feel free to put questions in the chat whenever you'd like as well, and we'll lift those up as appropriate. And now I will pass it back to talk about why content sharing.
Thanks, Melinda. And I love seeing everybody's favorites. Yes, Heather Cox Richardson. Awesome. So many great creators to follow. So content sharing might seem kind of obvious, but the nice thing about content sharing with an app or tool like Reach is that it's a way to not only have people sort of find your stuff on social media organically and then share it, but actually be able to direct your supporters and volunteers to the content that you really want to help break through the noise. Um, it's it kind of can make those viral moments happen when you really make it super easy for your volunteers to find the content that you want them to share with the messaging you want them to use, and then be able to put it into their own voice and share it with their networks. Obviously, there's so much distrust in mainstream media. There's a lot of ecosystem fragmentation, but also there's a lot of information on social media that probably shouldn't be trusted. And I know a lot of us have very mixed feelings about social media right now, especially particular platforms. Jamie's going to talk more about like why it's so important that we not cede ground on this, and how we can actually get our messaging through on some of those platforms. But it really is social media that can be the first line of defense when it comes to rapid response to misinformation and disinformation, as well as a way to really build community, and get a message through by being a trusted messenger. And if your message doesn't spread, it doesn't work. So we can have the best messaging in the world, and if nobody's seeing it, it's not being effective. So that's why content sharing is such an important piece of the puzzle. All right, next slide.
So we know from data from the last election that people who got their news primarily from social media actually went for Trump. And that was true on every platform except TikTok. So that is so critical that we are sharing across social media and we are building up our infrastructure now and not just relying on influencers, because right now the Democratic Party is really focusing on this influencer, but the fact remains is that when you're on social media and someone is following your account, you are the trusted messenger, and people are more likely to believe what their friends share. And so right now, over 55% of Americans are getting their news almost exclusively from social media. 55%. The younger the demographic, the higher that number rises. And so when we're talking about millennials and Gen Zs, that number can be up to 70 to 80% of their news consumption comes from social media. So we need to be getting out the facts constantly. We need to be sharing what is really going on and making sure that people understand how it affects their lives. We can't wait for the Democratic Party and a leader. We need to be the ones to do this. So 92% of Twitter users get at least some type of news from social media. 90% of TikTok users, 91% of Facebook users, and 82% of Instagram users are getting news from these platforms, which is an extraordinarily high number. And right now, everything is against us in social media. The algorithms are against us. We're seeing shadow banning and suppression. But when we have a constant flood of information, we can overcome those algorithms. And so we need to be putting out this message as a 24-hour drumbeat. I do have slides on all of these statistics from another one I've done, and I can send that to Leslie and she can send it out to you guys. So we need to be out there now. We can't wait till 6 months before an election to try to tell people what's going on. So, for example, last election, RFK had over 20,000 Instagram accounts that were under 1,000 followers that were spreading his vaccine disinformation.
Oh, terrifying. Yeah, lots of work to be done, but Jamie is the right person to give us direction on how to do it. So we're going to be sort of pivoting back and forth between like general ideas about content sharing and content on social media and doing content sharing with Reach. And towards the end of this, we're going to do like a hands-on live demo where you'll be able to share content from DemCast directly to your social media feeds. But wanted to talk a little bit about Reach's content sharing. It's our newest feature. It's now about a year and a half, almost 2 years old. It was built in collaboration with the DNC and the Harris Walls campaign. And many thousands of people used Reach to share content. Particularly, we saw huge spikes, obviously, around the change in candidate and then the convention and the lead up to the election, and really helped messaging get through. Obviously, we wish we had had more time for the messaging to break through. But considering what a short runway it was, content sharing became a huge part of branding Kamala Harris and getting that message across. Lots of folks are using Reach for content sharing. It's available to all of our clients. So lots of campaigns use it. We've also had folks create what's called shared galleries. So galleries that other people can subscribe to. Most recently, Vote Save America created a shared gallery that a bunch of folks subscribed to and then were able to share. So, this is a small sample of folks who have used Reach and use Reach content sharing. And we want to continue to build that. We really believe in the tool and believe in what it's able to empower. So, Jamie, oh,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So how content sharing works is on the back end, you are able to upload photos, videos, links, put the actual message that you want people to share, and then link it to either a gallery or a label. And what's great about that is it lets people find what they're interested in. So like during the election, we had, one specifically devoted to Harrison Wells and one specifically devoted to going after Trump and Vance. And now we have galleries on Republican accountability. And then we also have like a path to progress where we put the positive content, because we can't always be doing negative. We need some positive stuff to look forward to. And the other great thing about content sharing is when someone logs on to Reach and they go to the gallery, you can actually see what's new. And so that lets people know at a glance what content has been put up since the last time they've joined. And that is where probably most of the content sharing comes from, is on that recent content gallery that says new. It's like, oh, great, there's something new. I'm going to share this. Or the other thing that will happen is news breaks on healthcare. And so people are able to go to the label healthcare and find stuff that they can share from there. And that has been a very effective way. We have had hundreds of thousands of pieces of content shared from Reach. And that is why we're continuing. Every day we put anywhere from 10 to 20 new pieces of content in there so that people can share throughout the day. And then the other great feature is your volunteers can actually submit content. So we have an action card that literally says upload content. And that lets your volunteers, if they find a great piece of content, to actually upload it. And then your admins go in and approve it from the back end, so that you've got that level. Because when people are submitting content, not everything could be great, but that kind of gives you some very authentic content that you're able to then upload and share.
And then one of the things that is unique to Reach with sharing content, and very different than just like sending out an email with something you want folks to share, is that we have a mechanism for getting feedback. So there's the first level of feedback, which is a user in Reach looks at a piece of content and they can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So it's sort of like an instant reaction to the piece of content. But if they don't leave a review right away, they will get a push notification after they share the piece of content to actually leave feedback on how the sharing went. And they can write a review and be like, you know what? It went really well and got a lot of shares, or didn't get as much traction as I thought. And so it becomes an important mechanism for adjusting your content strategy based not only on how your volunteers are reacting to the content, because obviously they're your true believers, but how their networks are then reacting to the piece of content. So it's a really important feedback loop mechanism that we really believe in. And we see where organizations have made content sharing and getting feedback key to their strategy, that as much as like 40% of the people using it are actually giving feedback. So that's a really high percentage for those that are making this central to what they're doing.
When you're building a content program, you really want to identify who your audiences are and what platforms there are. And what's great is on the dashboard in Reach, you can actually see where a lot of the shares are coming from. And so that kind of really helps you tailor your message. So in our Reach campaign, Facebook is actually the number one shared platform. And so we tend to make the messages in reach a little bit more bipartisan because that's what Facebook likes. And people are a little bit more willing to share if it's not quite so edgy. Where Twitter does a little bit better if it's edgier content. So when you're doing this, you want to figure out what your goals are. Are you wanting to spread and recruit volunteers? Do you want to combat disinformation? Are you trying to persuade people? So that is what you need to ask yourself to get the best reaction and the most shares. And then you want to create your custom content to meet your objectives. And the other thing that we'll do is we'll also use the action cards because that sends out our users and we'll actually embed a piece of content we want them to share. So, um, So, for example, we points for Democrats, particularly the House Democrats. So we'll put that in an action card item for people to share that has that
Is Jamie cutting out for anybody else or just for me?
messaging embedded in it. And we get tons and tons and tons of shares
Yes, Jamie is in and out.
off
Gotcha.
that one specific content. Staying unstable. Is that better?
Yeah, I think that's better.
Yeah, they're doing some work construction around here. So Um, and then you want to format your messages and graphics for the platforms you want to use. So if you know people are going to be sharing it on Instagram, you want to do more of a square. If you think they're going to be sharing it on Twitter, you want to do more of a rectangle. So really customize because that really dictates what platforms people are going to share on.
So, Jamie and I are going to go back and forth on talking about content best practices. This is something I know finds really important, and I personally do, and on all the campaigns I've worked on, have really tried to drive this home. Super important to give guidance on messaging, and make sure people understand what messaging works, what messaging doesn't. Sometimes it comes down to like tweaking something as small as a single word. However, you still want the message to come across as authentic. So, like in Reach, for those of you who've used Reach for content sharing, you know that the organization or campaign can provide a suggested piece of copy to go with the image or video that you can copy and then customize. So it's always finding the right balance between words that work and messaging that's authentic. My other big beef on messaging is we have a bad habit, I think, in the progressive community of sharing the opposition with the word no in front of it or bad. The problem is it's the George Lakoff thing, right? When you talk about an elephant, you see an elephant. And so what we end up doing inadvertently is sharing the opposition's frame and spreading their message. And we've seen this a lot with Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, will say something absolutely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and a bunch of people on the progressive side will reshare it with like, isn't she crazy? And her follows will increase, and her number of views and shares will increase. And we don't want to do that. So my two big ones are yes, use messaging that works and understand what messaging works and why, but make it your own. And do not repeat the opposition's frame. And I'll let Jamie share some of her favorites. Uh-oh, did we lose Jamie? I think we might have lost her for the moment. Um, I'll just talk about a few others.
Accounts like that.
Yeah. Oh, again,
Sorry.
that's okay. You're just cutting in and out. So
Yeah.
I'll go over this slide and hopefully we'll get you back in a moment. But it's also really important to, like using authentic voices, also make sure that you're speaking to people at their emotional core. I think most of us understand that statistics and numbers do not persuade people, and they are not compelling. As frustrating as that may be, that is just reality. And so always translating that into what's the emotional impact and what's the personal impact. A number is just a number, but a personal story can have a lot of impact. And then obviously visuals. Right now we read fewer and fewer words. And so GIFs, videos, memes, anything with visual impact, even when you're using words, to keep it brief, is really, really important. And let's go to the next slide. All right, Jamie, do we have you back?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I tried to turn off my phone internet to see if that would help.
Yeah, I think so.
So I do want to say one thing on the last slide. If it's someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene that's already getting a lot of attention, it's not necessarily bad to go in and reply with the actual facts, especially if you can provide a link to a neutral source like AP or Reuters or something like that. But if it is a small account that's giving disinformation, do not reply to that because that will boost it. So when you are recruiting volunteers, you want to make sure that you are recruiting from broad and diverse communities. And you really want to focus on recruiting on the platforms where you can have the most impact. I will say Instagram is the left's worst platform, and that is where we need to be spending a lot of our time, is really on Instagram. So you can do paid digital ads for targeted recruiting. The recruitment the vetting you have to do on that, though, is very, very high, because you will get, I would say, up to about 50 to 60% will be right-wing trolls trying to get into your program. So you need to make sure that if you're doing paid, you need to really have a good vetting system in place, and not just sending those people information. Your best recruiting efforts are going to be through your current volunteers, asking them to bring a friend, or saying, can you bring, having a volunteer recruitment and asking your volunteers to bring 5 people. That is the best recruiting that we've found. And you want to make sure that you keep your volunteers engaged. So on Reach, we make sure we don't do this on the weekends. We want to give people time off. But during the week, we want to make sure that we have new content in there every single day. So people know that they can go in anytime they have a minute. And we like to say, you can do this while you're in line at the grocery store. That's how simple it is. So when they have that minute, when they're in line at the grocery store, they can log on, find new content, and then share it that easily. And then you also want to recognize your top volunteers. Give them a shout out. If you don't want somebody else to feel bad, just sending them a private message of, you're kicking ass right now, really encourages them to keep going and keep sharing content. And then the other thing that we like to do is we will go and do word searches from some of the posts, and then go into different platforms and actually repost it or comment, so that your volunteers know that you're paying attention and they know that you're sharing.
That's great. I love that idea of not only them sharing your stuff, but you sharing back their links and commenting. That's awesome.
And I'm not sure if we really talked about the leaderboards at all, but that's a nice way to be able to track engagement that you're having and then be able to do those either direct or public shout outs, depending on what the goals are.
Yeah, so if for those of you not familiar yet with the Reach app, and you will get familiar in a moment, we do have a leaderboard, so you can see who's doing the most sharing or who's doing the most activity, and you can filter it by different metrics. And it's a great way to have some fun gamification of volunteering. So, Jamie, do you want to talk a little about? I know you do very specific training. This is more sort of generalized, but Jamie, if you want to talk a little bit about your training program.
So once a month, we do a volunteer welcome, where we do a Zoom call, that we kind of go through who we are as an organization and then do training in real time on all of the different tools that we use, because that lets people ask questions and then we have them practice on it. And, then we leave a good chunk of that whole call just to be able to answer questions. And that really gives your volunteers a chance to know you and also give feedback. And then we like to give the feedback back to all of the tools that we use. So Reach is familiar with us asking for stuff. And what we have found, which is really quite fascinating, is if we don't include a message on content, very rarely is that content shared. But when we do include a message, 90% of the time, it's customized. So people really like to have that starting point given to them, and then they're able to take it and put their own spin on it. So,
That
so yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that that's great, and I think speaks to what I was saying, what we were talking about earlier with best practices. It's like really people want the guidance, and I think that that guidance gives them the freedom to make it their own.
It's just the starting point of once you give them that starting point, it's like the spark of like, okay, now I know what I want to say. Versus if it's just a graphic, it's like, or a video, it's like, where do I start? I have to listen or I have to watch the whole video before I share it because I'm not sure what to say about it. And then, if you have super volunteers, reach out to them, see if they're interested in doing more. And so we now have 4 or 5 volunteers that are helping us upload content into Reach. So you're not having to do it yourself, especially if you're a small organization. We only have 2 paid staff members. So, with 50,000 volunteers across platforms. So we can't do it all ourselves. So but if you've got super volunteers, they want to help. They want to do more, and empower them to do that.
That's great. And just the only other thing I'll mention here is that there's a link in here to our downloadable, customizable volunteer training deck. It trains on a variety of features on Reach, but you can delete the slides you're not using and make it all about training for content sharing if you want to. So when you get the slides and the recording, you'll be able to download that if you want. So we're going to go ahead and do some hands-on content sharing with DemCast. So you can either type in this URL. If you already have Reach on your phone, you can scan the QR code. You can use Reach on iOS or Android. We have native apps for both, or you can use Reach on the web. I think a lot of you on this are probably already on Reach, and that QR code or URL will take you directly to the DemCast campaign. Thank you for putting that in the chat, Jamie.
Yeah,
Uh,
and And our campaign is open. So if you just go to, you're already on it. If you just go to my campaigns, we have an open reach. So
Yeah, you can just join DemCast right from your campaign. If you are not yet on Reach, Melinda, if you want to jump to the next slide, you'll have to register with your cell phone number, complete your profile, and then you'll be texted a code that you enter. Pretty simple. Once you do that, you will be in Reach and in DemCast. So just register with phone number, complete your profile, and enter the code. Easy peasy. If you want to jump to the next slide, Melinda, we will go ahead, and I'll let Jamie take over.
all right. So once you log on, you are going to be at the home page. So on the bottom, you'll have your action feed and your library. And so in the library, you'll have your recent content, you'll have your galleries, and then labels. And so you can kind of scroll through and see what you want to share.
There's some great new content I hadn't seen in a while. So if you're not familiar with content sharing, you can, if you click the big blue button in the middle, it's going to take you to the role and hit copy on the copy and select your app. It's going to take you to your role of all the social media apps you have, Facebook, Instagram, uh, Blue Sky, X, whatever you've got on your phone.
I will say it is much easier to share from your phone, but you can do it from your computer. You just have to go directly to the platform instead of just picking a platform from your apps. But we do have people who are diehard computer users as well. So
I'm particularly enjoying the quote from Raphael Warnock right now.
Can you please put the QR code back up? The slide with the QR code?
Sure.
Thank you. I just found my phone.
No worries.
I laughed when I saw that quote from Raphael Warnock. So
That's so good. So good. For those of you who aren't in there, Raphael Warnock said, hang on. Yes. I will be voting no on the billionaire tax giveaway bill. And if I weren't a preacher, I'd tell you what kind of no. So if you're in there, you'll also notice you can always bookmark something. You can download it for later. That's where you can give it the thumbs up or thumbs down to rate it. You can leave a comment right there. Which I'm going to do right now. And submit the review. And then you'll get a push notification to let DemCast know how the sharing went. So you can see how like super simple, easy it is to do content sharing with Reach. I know there are other content sharing tools out there too. I'm not as familiar with them, but I think, as a concept, we on the progressive side clearly need to be making this a major part of our communication efforts because we cannot cede any ground.
yeah, and I will say, because we use two different tools for social sharing. We use Socia and we use Reach, and they're very, very different demographics. In Reach, Facebook and Instagram are the top shares. On the other platforms, it tends to be more Twitter and Blue Sky. And there's also there's a huge difference in the type of content that is shared. In Reach, people tend to, at least our people in Reach, tend to like a little bit more of the bipartisan or comparison, where on the other platforms they prefer really edgy and hard hitting and going really hard after Republicans. And so that's something that you want to be conscious of, is making sure that you have different messages for different people, because nobody is the same. And if you want to make sure that you have something for everybody.
So I think we can jump into the Q&A now. You can keep sharing from DemCast, and if you have any questions about that, we're happy to answer. But general questions about content sharing, about Reach, about DemCast, fire away. So I will ask the first question. Jamie, how did you all get started? Like, what's the origin story for DemCast?
As an organization,
Yeah.
so for leading up to the 2018 midterms, we had started to create some Twitter groups for some candidates as we were trying to flip the House. And we had discovered that, a group of 40 or 50 people, if we all decided we're going to start talking about this candidate, we're all going to jump online tonight at 7 o'clock and we're going to talk about this candidate tonight. We saw that we could increase the number of followers they had. We could get donations going. We could get people recruited to volunteer events, and then they would get earned media. And, back in 2018, nobody was doing organized digital. And so kind of took all of the lessons we learned from 2018 of just doing this, trying to help out candidates, and actually make this something formal. Back then, there was no tools to social share. We would use a spreadsheet, and we were using something called Click to Tweet. So that is how it all developed. And then so in 2019, we actually launched formally. And I remember we had a conversation, a phone call with the DNC, and they gave us blank stares and said, "What do you mean sharing on social media? Is that the internet?" And I could feel my eyes rolling in the back of my head.
And how far we have come since.
How far we have come. But really, we've been doing this for 5.5 years now. And it's only been the last year that you're really seeing the Democrats as a whole embrace social media. But there is still a large segment of the progressive ecosphere who are still sending out social media toolkits on Word docs.
Yeah.
I would say it's still about 75%.
Oof.
So.
Any of the folks on the, who tuned in would love to hear from you too, if you have any experience with content sharing and what your experience has been and any thoughts and ideas. Please feel free to jump in.
I'm sorry, I don't see a raise hand function, but I want to understand. I'm sorry, I'm very bad at this. Can you can you, when you say edit to make it in your voice, the first thing I found was a video of Trump. You can't edit that, can you?
No, you wouldn't edit the video. You'll see there's copy, and there's a button to copy the copy and then paste it.
And so that kind of stuff, we can't edit.
Yeah, it's the copy that's editable. The suggested copy that goes with the asset. So whether it's a video or graphic or meme, the suggested copy that they're providing, which when you hit the share button, you'll see suggested post and then a blue button to copy it. And once you copy it and you select your app and you go in and you paste it, you can then edit it before you actually hit post.
And if you are sharing a video to Instagram or to TikTok, then you actually can edit the video within the app. Whether it's, adding some text to the video, shortening it. And I would say over 50% of people that do that to TikTok and Instagram actually do a little video editing. And that is probably more for more advanced users, but a lot of people do edit the video within those apps and kind of make it their own.
Okay, thank you. I'll have to get someone several decades younger to help me with that.
Hello.
I see Yolanda has her hand raised. So Paul, I'll call on you next. I'm gonna mute you but Yolanda, you go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, Leslie and Jamie, and to all the other people on the line. You go under the react where the big heart is at the bottom of your screen, and you click on that and it will say raise hand or send out a shout of love to everybody, okay? With that in mind, I would like to go to this web sharing, content sharing. I'm trying to figure out how best we can get these Republicans and some Democrats and some independents to recognize the power of the people who they should be serving and protecting. Like Johnson and Green, these front runners. I noticed that you have leaders in most organizations, meetings. They're the front runners, no matter where you go, church, school, what have you. And pretty much we have a lot of followers who really don't want to go along with what is suggested, but they will go along with it just to fit in. So I'm trying to find out how this content sharing could most impact these talkers, because they're just talking. They're not saying what most Americans really feel when they go to the grocery stores. Are you with me so far? So,
yeah.
Or to their doctor's office and they get a bill in the mail. They're not representing the majority of true Americans. So how can this content sharing put a damper on people like Johnson and Green? Is there somehow we can get in their heads?
So Green, no, she's safe. But where it can make a huge difference, and unfortunately the platform it still makes the most difference on, is Twitter. It's a cesspool. We cannot concede it. But the fact is that almost every member of Congress and every major newspaper is still on that. And so you will still see, even now, that what is happening on Twitter will actually still make it to earned media. And that is a powerful tool, especially for vulnerable Republicans, or even pressuring Democrats. And we do quite frequently, we will do social storms, still focused on Twitter, that we can actually get something trending on Twitter.
Jamie, can you just say what a social storm is?
So, a social storm is when you get a lot of people to post about one specific topic at the same time, and then you go in and amplify each other. And so, we will do that either with a keyword or a hashtag. And we always launch that at the same time. Um, so, you can still make news off of that. And you can pressure Republicans or even your Democrats. And we have found, honestly, more success pressuring Democrats who may be wavering on a bill. And a good example of that was the SAVE Act, where we had 5 Democrats who voted for the SAVE Act last time, that we did a pressure campaign on their social media accounts leading up to the vote, and we got 3 of them to change their vote. And they were wavering up till the last minute. So we did a massive so literally their notifications were flooded.
It's great. Paul, you had a question? Oh, you're muted now. Let me ask you to unmute.
I just want to give you some feedback. I'm from Milwaukee or Shorewood, Wisconsin. The WisDems is our administrator. Um, and there's a feature that every time we have a conversation at the door, it goes into my Reach library. I heard about it and I just looked at it and I have 220 people in there. Here in the people in my team, even the leadership, we're at the very basic level. You guys are in the stratosphere. Um, the uh, like the feature that you just talked about, sharing contact, I started playing around with it, and kind of got into the weeds pretty quickly. Um, so, and also the content that's put up there is, I think the organizers that we have, we only have a couple. We have 3 for whole Milwaukee County, and so there's really not all this things about your discussion about sharing in social media is not happening here, mostly because of we don't have the capability for training. Um, and so bottom line, anything you can do to offer training would be extremely helpful. We struggle with that. We just had a meeting 3-4 weeks ago. We had all the neighborhood team leaders and our organizer said, "Yeah, we'll get you some training on Reach." And these 3 people got a million things to do, and it doesn't happen. I mean, they do it, but you have to have it not enough. So I just want to give you that feedback that what you're talking about is not happening with the WisDem version of Reach. We're using it for finding voters to do a high traffic canvassing. And we look them up on the voter polls, and then we do a questionnaire, and we capture the information that goes into VAM. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So we actually did our last webinar with Wisconsin Dems, which was focused on relational organizing and high traffic canvassing, because the great thing about Reach is different organizations use it in different ways and highlight different features. I know that there is some content I believe there's content for Wisconsin Dems in the content library. What we've heard is they were finding that what people were really looking for were sort of informational one sheets rather than kind of slick content to share on social media. And so I think it also really changes depending on where we are in the election cycle. Obviously, there was some content that was moving a little bit more quickly in the lead up to the Supreme Court race. But yeah, we love our partnership with Wisconsin Dems. And for those of you who are interested in learning more about what Paul's talking about with the relational organizing and the high traffic canvassing, we did our last webinar with them, and it's available on our blog. And you can watch it and look at the slide deck. But yeah, and as far as training goes, like Jamie said, I would certainly sit in on a DemCast training if you get the opportunity. It will give you some ideas. And you can use the great thing about DemCast is it's a national campaign. So really you could use it wherever you are. They have some content that is specific to specific areas, and they have a lot of content that is national.
And like this year, we'll have a lot of content that will be focused on like the Virginia and New Jersey elections. But I put my email in the chat, and we're always happy to do training for Pacific organizations that want it on social media. So we're happy to do that.
And we would love to get the Spanberger campaign on Reach. So, Dorothy, if you have a connection there, please use the sales@reach.vote or mine or Melinda's emails and have them contact us. We've certainly reached out. I know they are quite busy right now with everything going on, but would love to get them on Reach. And yeah, would love to get as many folks as we can using tools because we really believe that when you make it easier for volunteers to engage in activities, things go better.
Yeah. And after the primaries, that is when you'll start to see content for Virginia and New Jersey. Because we will not get involved in the primaries because it is a very contested race. I know if you're not from Virginia, it doesn't sound like it, or the same with New Jersey, but they are hotly contested. So,
good point. Yolanda, did you have another question?
Yes, I'm sorry, but at the beginning of the meeting, I was a couple of minutes behind because I was having technical difficulties. So Zoom had to help with that, and they did. But I didn't get Leslie, I didn't get to hear your introductory on your organization, how you came about.
Oh, Melinda and I are the co-directors of client success here at Reach.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have time for one more question if we have any last questions.
I would just like to say thank you for all of your help and assistance and enlightenment on what we can do to better help the future people of the United States of America, especially our children. Thank you so much.
Well put, Yolanda. And I encourage everybody, if you're not already in DemCast, definitely join. We've got lots of campaigns that are currently active on Reach in a variety of places. In addition to obviously Virginia and New Jersey, we have some hotly contested mayoral and city council races in New York City and elsewhere. So you can always search the directory and Reach. You can set filters to find campaigns that you're interested in. But we greatly appreciate it. We will be sharing these links to our social media, our LinkedIn, our Blue Sky. Jamie's obviously on all of them. Melinda and I are on a few of them, and Reach is on a lot of them.
I never go on LinkedIn, so
yeah, that's my how I feel about X. But Reach is on X, so yeah, couldn't take the cesspool any longer. But so appreciate everybody being here, and thank you to Jamie Carter for sharing her incredible wisdom and the work that they're doing at DemCast. It really is making a huge difference, and we are so grateful to have them on our progressive ecosystem and have them using Reach to get their messaging out. So really appreciate it, and we look forward to following up with y'all.
And thank you all again so much for your commitment to the cause and, not just showing up, but what the fact that you're here means about the type of work that you're doing and the impact that you're continuing to have. So thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. Our democracy needs you, and we appreciate what you're doing every day.
Take care,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. Have a wonderful
Thank
holiday
you.
weekend.
Goodbye, everyone.